This is Larry Jordan, the host of the Digital Production Buzz. The following interview is an excerpt from a recent program. To hear the entire program, visit digitalproductionbuzz.com. Philip Hodgetts is a wizard when it comes to digital technology, and he is currently in Amsterdam attending the IBC conference as well as a variety of peripheral events. Welcome, Philip. It's always good to see you.
Thank you, Larry.
So let's start with IBC. Have you had a chance to tour the show floor at all, and what's caught your attention?
Well, I did spend some time on the show floor. It's kind of pointless coming to Amsterdam for IBC and not going to the show floor. But I didn't do the whole satellite Earth station, and, well, there's a lot of halls that I was not that interested in, but I certainly looked around some of the metadata companies and saw that there isn't very much new there. I was shopping to see if I could find a small 4K replacement for the GoPro, and I was sad to discover that the new Cinema Micro Cinema camera from Blackmagic was still only at HD resolution. So probably next year they'll have the 4K version for me. And looking at some of the work that we're doing now with the cooking show is having me record in restaurants, and the audio is suboptimal at times, particularly for the setup where we don't want to bother wiring mics. I know we should wire the mics. Don't give me the lecture, please. I know what I should do. But the interesting concept is knowing what the tools could do for me in post. Maybe I can take that little bit less obtrusive in the restaurant and seize the moment. So I spent some time on the isotope stand and getting a demonstration of some of particularly their dialogue denoiser, which is so far beyond just the sort of parametric equalization that I've always tried to use to separate out the same frequencies from the background noise, because the background noise is in exactly the same voice frequencies. So they look at really the dynamics and what they expect dialogue to sound like and look like, so that they can then process everything that is not dialogue out of it. The more continuous that background noise is, the better. But they did show some interesting examples that intrigued me, and so I'm going to give it a go, because we have some examples where it's just barely possible to pick the dialogue above the crowd. So,
now, wait a minute. What Isotope is doing is they're able to remove echoes without materially damaging the principal voice?
That's one of their many tools. They certainly do a deverb tool, but they also have a tool that is called dialogue denoise, and that takes background noise out of dialogue. So the first example is the easy example. Of course, there's the air conditioning noise. You don't have to pre-sample and have a clean area, which means that it can vary over time and still be cleaned up. And so I was particularly interested in that tool. They have a whole range of magic in their toolbox, and I'm sure that it will be useful for me as well. But that was the one tool that I was really interested in finding out about.
Isotope makes some incredible audio cleanup products. The product is called RX5, or are they showing a new RX6?
No, they're showing RX5, and they're offering a $100 discount that I hopefully will be taking advantage of.
Well, there's a lot going on at IBC, which is not the show itself. There's a lot of peripheral events. We know that Mike Horton had the SuperMeet, but there was also a two-day event called FCPExpo going on. Tell me about that.
This was under the auspices of Soho Editors with FCP Works, which is an American-based organization, and was a hybrid of presentations at one end of the space and a limited number of demonstration stations at the other end of the space. So during the couple of days, we had marketing presentations from Apple. We had some interesting presentations on Frame.io. We had presentations on various workflows. There were some great demos of SliceX, of course, and everything that it can do, both in the Apple demo and in other demonstrations as well. Really, a little bit like going to church, in that almost everyone that was there was in one way or the other already on board with Final Cut Pro 10. But, of course, part of going to church is to learn how to evangelize. So they were getting the evidence that they needed to go back out into the wilds and to deliver the gospel of Final Cut Pro 10, or the good news of Final Cut Pro 10. For me personally, the most fascinating was the metronome presentation. A lot of this has been shown on fcp.co recently. But it was great to get it straight from Ronnie Cortens, and the two guys that implemented Ryan and Matt, that implemented the Final Cut Pro 10 installation and workflows at Metronome. and just working how they work big multi-person workflows. All this thing that Final Cut Pro 10 supposedly can't do is what they're doing on television shows, and finding that it's just working faster and better for them. Now, and of course, they want to use Lumberjack, so I love them.
Well, we must admit that Lumberjack is your product, so just so that I understand the love there,
yes.
Parent for the child. One of the things that struck me, Philip, is that you said that Apple was doing presentations at this event. This is a very unusual thing. Apple doesn't do public presentations. Were they actual Apple people?
They were actual Apple people. Luke Tristram is one of the product management group at Apple. Yes, they were doing presentations, the first thing up at the FCPExpo, but it isn't unprecedented. They have done similar things at the FCP Works demo room back at NAB, and even at the FCP Works launch, there was a presentation by Luke again as part of the launch of that group a couple of years back. So it's not completely unprecedented, but it is still rare enough to be notable.
Now, you've been involved with the SuperMeet for years and years. How does the SuperMeet and FCPExpo, do they compete, or are they the same thing? How are they different?
Oh, they're completely different events. The FCPExpo was simply designed to showcase Final Cut Pro and its ecosystem to people who were interested or largely, as I mentioned, already converted to the Final Cut Pro 10. The SuperMeet is a gathering of creative people across all sorts of tools. There were people who favor the Adobe suite there, and indeed, Adobe was presenting again, and Al Mooney was his normal excitable self on stage. They're very different events, and they suit different needs. The only challenge that we have is that we were trying to have pop-up banners and the presence of both, and they were on at the same time, and there's only two of us, so quick zip off into the public transport, and there we were at the other meeting.
Is FCPExpo the same size as the SuperMeet?
Oh, heck no. FCPExpo was attracting rolling numbers of people, but never more than about 35 or 40 guests at a time, whereas the SuperMeet is 300 or 400, so we're looking 10 times the number of people.
Let's switch back to IBC before I let you go, because these are questions I'd love to spend hours talking with you about, but we've talked about the Isotope booth. Any other highlights for you at IBC?
The other thing that I was very keen to see at IBC was that is Dolby Vision. Terry Curran has told me repeatedly that I need to see Dolby Vision to understand the future of HDR television. And it is very, very impressive. Almost to the extent where I feel that I want to put on a pair of sunglasses to watch television. They measure television in brightness in nits for some reason. I don't really know why we don't use lumens, but it's nits. A typical HD display is about 40 nits, whereas the current Dolby Vision display is a 2,000 nits, so it's about 5 times brighter on the brightest part, which of course makes the blackest even blacker. And so it is so dynamic. A sunrise looks like a sunrise in your face. It's almost that bright. They say they can go eventually to 10,000 nits. I'm not sure that I want to go that far.
Sit in the living room.
But they've already started licensing the technology to some of the television manufacturers. So we may see that. I think HDR, high dynamic range television, where we get brighter brighters and darker darks, is something that more people will see the benefit of than higher resolution, because resolution has generally been a perception of influenced more by sharpness or contrast than it has by actual resolution. So I think it would be great to see that.
I had a chance to see a demo of Dolby Vision about a year and a half ago and was amazed at the difference between standard HD and HDR HD. However, up until IBC, no video editing software supported HDR. Avid didn't, Adobe didn't, and Final Cut didn't. But Adobe at IBC announced support for HDR video in their next update. So we're going to be able to actually play with it ourselves in video editing in the next month or two.
Yes, they've had another great suite of announcements and enhancements to their Premiere Pro and to the Creative Cloud.
Philip, I could spend the next hour talking about highlights, but I know you've got things to do back in Amsterdam. Thanks for taking time out of your evening to chat with us, and travel safely back to the States.
Thanks, Larry.
If you'd like to see more videos like this one, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. To stay connected and receive updates from The Buzz, sign up for our free weekly newsletter now. Or you can learn more about us on our website. And thanks for watching The Digital Production Buzz.